In the Arctic, the land teaches long before the classroom ever does. It teaches through stillness, through storm. It teaches when to move and when to turn back. How to survive in a place that demands your full attention. These aren't lessons you find in textbooks or in lectures. They're passed down from generations through watching, listening, surviving. Because in the North, the land is the first teacher. But today, learning also takes support from systems that work. I'm Hannah Thibodeau, and this is The Arctic Edge, stories from Canada's frontier. In this episode, we explore the real catalyst for long-term change in Nunavut: education. Not just school books and test scores, but the whole ecosystem of learning, housing, mentorship, language, and legacy. So far in this series, we've looked at the rise of the wage economy in Nunavut, how mining and investment are unlocking opportunity, not just for the territory, but for the whole country. And we've met a bold new generation of Inuit business leaders. They're building networks, attracting capital, and growing a sector of Inuit-owned, Inuit-led enterprises, laying the groundwork for a stronger, more self-determined northern economy. It's exciting and promising. But here's the truth. That momentum, it won't last if the education system can't keep pace. Sean Boyd is the chair of Agnico Eagle. His company invests heavily in workforce training and mentorship. But he says if we're serious about the future, we need to start long before the job site.
Training's important, but education's important.
And he's right. You can't build a career if the classroom experience was never strong to begin with.
By the time they're getting a grade 12 certificate, it's not really grade 12. They maybe have grade 9 skills, but that's on us. And that's on us to make sure that the young people have the opportunities that young people in the South have. And that's the only way we're going to be able to maximize the opportunities that we see, not just in the region in the North, but in the people of the North.
My name is Mads Kvist Fredriksen. I'm the Executive Director of the Arctic Economic Council.
We've met Mads Kvist Fredriksen in previous episodes of The Arctic Edge. He's talked about the economic benefits of mining in the Arctic. But building a resilient economy, that takes more than infrastructure. It takes a generational commitment to education.
There is a good study done in Greenland saying how can we grow the economy and how can we make people stay. And they spent years and years studying the smartest economists, the smartest business people, and they came up with one conclusion. They said, if we want to succeed, we need to invest in early childhood education. So the best investments you could do was in kindergartens and early childhood education. And why is this? It's because it provides the base in your life. It provides the fundament. You know, you feel confident. You have learned how to read and write. You have learned your math skills and so on, and it opens up opportunities.
That makes logical sense. Invest early and wisely, and you get a generational return on the investment. But in Nunavut, the challenges stack up fast.
My name is Pujut Kusugak. I'm from Rankin Inlet, Nunavut, and I work for Agnico Eagle Mines, and I'm the Director for Nunavut Affairs.
Pujut Kusugak brings an interesting perspective to the education file. He made it his mission to weave Inuit culture, traditional knowledge, and language into the education system.
Yeah, I'm a teacher by trade. Received my B.Ed through a teacher education program before, which was affiliated with McGill University. I taught for a couple years and then had other opportunities still to work with our language Inuktitut and our culture.
And let's be honest, that's not easy.
The difficulty is finding Inuktitut teachers that will teach the language.
Truth is, it's hard to find teachers, period. Recruitment isn't just a challenge in Nunavut, it's a crisis.
Just a couple weeks ago, I read an article about one of the communities in our region where they're down less than 50% of teachers in their high school. And that's almost nothing new.
Recruiting teachers to come from other parts of the country is hard. But Puget says the prospects of having homegrown talent even harder.
Our graduation rate is quite low, and then it goes even lower for post-secondary. And then if you're looking at like a master's or a doctorate, it falls even more. That's the situation we're in right now, which creates difficulty for hiring.
When Inuit students are left behind, the impact echoes far beyond the school walls. Government, industry, and local businesses all struggle to recruit and retain. Because when too few people are qualified to take on key roles, the whole economy slows down.
When we have vacancies in the government of Nunavut that are probably about 50% or more, they're not able to fill the positions because of people maybe not having the educational background or experience. But then if the government of Nunavut can't hire that many, then you look at us in the mining industry, where we're constantly looking for more Inuit to hire and train, but they also need to be able to follow through with the training and schooling and everything else. So when there's a successful Inuit that has graduated in whatever degree, everybody's going after that person, because the Inuit that are educated or have the experience are not as many, which creates difficulty as well. So we're not seeing as many Inuit that are in higher management positions, supervisory positions within the mining sector. But then it's similar in other sectors as well.
The remote nature of Nunavut makes recruitment tough. Language adds another layer. And then there is housing, or more accurately, the lack of it.
We have teachers that get hired and they end up having to room with somebody they might have never met before. The housing situation causes difficulty in recruiting and then even retention.
As we know, the housing crisis isn't something that can be solved overnight. In 2021, the government of Nunavut committed to 3,000 new units being built or under construction by 2030.
Secure housing, it's actually the game changer. Without that, it's hard to take maximum advantage of the opportunity here, not just at a community level, but at a family level.
And Agnico Eagle is stepping in too.
Starting in 2025 on this barge season, where Agnico is going to move on their barges a total of 20 housing units, so essentially for 20 families, be delivered to Baker Lake and Rankin Inlet to address some of the housing needs.
It's incremental, but it is progress, and it's gaining momentum.
It's a small start, but it's an important start, because as we said to the Premier yesterday, how can we do more? How can we work together? How can we make this happen? We have logistical capacity, but we also have the capacity to move quickly.
And that matters, because if you want more teachers, you need more housing. If you want better outcomes, you need better systems. And if you want those systems to work, they need to be connected to each other and to the classroom. Right now, that connection, it's fragile. Industry is moving, investment is growing, but the bridge between education and employment isn't strong enough. Sean Boyd says it's time to sharpen that focus, because without that link, too many opportunities are falling through the cracks.
It's going to be a series of initiatives, and again, I don't have the answers. Agnico doesn't have the answers, and that's why we're suggesting that at the senior leadership level in the government of Nunavut, we're open to interesting and creative ideas when it comes to this. We're open. We do a lot of training at the site, but I agree it's that transition out of the education system into the job. And one of the holdbacks is the ability to get into a trade program. But we've got a really good training program in certain aspects at the site. We need to do more, but we need to do a better job connecting with the educational system.
So that's another step. It's not just about creating jobs, it's about making sure the classroom prepares the students for the work ahead. Real skills, a connection between what they learn and what they'll be asked to do. But here's the thing. None of it matters if the kids aren't going to the classes in the first place. And in Nunavut, that happens every day. Not because they don't want to learn, but because their bellies are empty and the energy just isn't there.
Students that are not even showing up at school because they're too hungry to even, make the move and show up.
Judith Barry is a co-founder and director of government relations at Breakfast Club Canada. She says the food insecurity statistics are nothing short of staggering.
80% of children and Indigenous children, specifically in Nunavut, who are living in food insecure household, which has a direct impact on the number of students attending schools on an empty stomach.
It's really not complicated. Kids learn better on a full stomach. But as with most of the realities of living and working in Nunavut, food insecurity is compounded by the cost of living, particularly the cost of food and groceries.
The cost of basic basket of goods in Nunavut rose by 26% between 2022 and 2024. 26%. It's and we know that at the baseline was already high. So we're really trying to advocate for more resources, more support. We're happy that more government than ever are allocating some funding to school food in general.
And Judith is clear, the Breakfast Club isn't the answer. It's a stopgap, and it's a necessary one. Because right now, feeding students is still a fight, and it shouldn't be.
And long-term partnerships, such as the one with Agnico Eagle, we can make it work, and we can do better and stretch the dollar because we're trying to regroup the needs regionally and really negotiate at the advantage of the cause and at the advantage of the students, instead of looking at purchasing food at each community level. Right, so we're really trying to look at it on a food system base level. Plus advocacy, so people can understand that feeding children is not an easy task in today's world, and it's everyone's business. We need everyone to be part of the solution.
As Judith points out, Agnico Eagle is a long-term partner, supporting the Breakfast Club's work and advocacy. Sean Boyd sees that investment in food security as important as the support for the housing initiative.
If you're coming without a proper breakfast, then you're at a disadvantage. And I said, well, we've made a commitment for $2.5 million. Well, when's that up? You can't just pull that away.
Agnico Eagle's $2.5 million support for the Breakfast Club has become vital to keeping the program running in Nunavut. But Sean's hope, and Judith's, is one day we won't need it.
It shouldn't be permanent. It's like a food bank. It should be elevating the communities up where we don't have to rely on the Breakfast Club to supply those breakfasts.
So at risk of being pessimistic, The realities of Nunavut are a tangle of issues. It's complicated. And it would be easy to throw up your hands and say, too hard, too expensive. But that's not what's happening. Because in spite of all of the challenges, there is a long list of success stories. Young people in Nunavut are excelling as leaders and as innovators.
I see so many success stories. We've got so many entrepreneurs in this city of Iqaluit now, former students and current leaders are former students, and it's just wonderful to see.
Darlene Nukinga is a retired teacher who's seen the transformation firsthand. Former students, now business owners, now political leaders.
I mean, our current premier is from Grise Fiord. Who would have thought? Little tiny community of 50 to 100 people? That's an amazing success story.
She knows the education system is under pressure, but she also knows what works. Putting the kids at the center of the learning process, giving them permission to be curious, and building lessons around what lights them up.
I tended to be a project-based teacher, so even with my grade 3 students, if I would find whatever their interest was, they could research it and do a presentation, and it would fit into the curriculum somewhere.
Of course, not all learning happens at a desk. Darlene knows some of the most meaningful growth comes from mentorship, from being seen, guided, encouraged.
Well, I have personally mentored a lot of people and seen them take on leadership positions. I don't take all the credit. I mean, they did it themselves too, because it takes a certain amount of bravery.
It's really hard to chase success if you've never seen someone like you succeed. That's the power of someone to look up to. A role model doesn't just show you what's possible. They show you that you belong there too.
I, Leona Gluka, do solemnly and sincerely promise and swear that I will truly and faithfully and to the best of my skills and knowledge execute the powers reposed in me as Minister of Health. So help me God. Thank you.
On October 30th, 2008, Leona Aglukak made history. She became the first Inuk to serve as a federal cabinet minister in Canada. She was new to federal politics, but not to leadership. She brought years of experience in territorial politics and public service. And in that moment, she became a living example of what it means to be a role model.
When I entered politics, I entered it in a territorial system. I had worked in the public service for a long time, leading up to Nunavut. And when I decided to run at the territorial level, I hadn't been home in my home community for 18 years. And when I was asked to come home and get engaged in that, I did that. And being involved in the territorial system as finance minister, house leader, later as health minister and status of women in the territorial system, I was a bit frustrated in that, it was difficult to advance issues at the federal level that could help advance a number of things in the North. We were dealing with transfer cuts at that time, and it was a challenge. So when I was asked to run federally, I put a lot of thought into that. I was a new mom of a 2-month-old baby at the time. And I decided to put my name forward because I thought I could contribute and address some of the challenges that were being faced by Northerners at the time at the federal level. And then I got elected and appointed as Minister of Health for Canada. At the time of the appointment, it didn't really dawn on me that I was the first Inuk in Canadian history to be a cabinet minister.
Her historic appointment came with a unique kind of pressure because she wasn't just stepping into a national role, she was stepping into it as an Inuk woman.
It was later when people started reaching out, I'm like, wow, this is quite significant. And I knew at that point that I would be watched carefully. I would be watched and critiqued and criticized, or, I knew that. And there's big shoes to fill and a big responsibility, not just being in that role, but people were looking to see how I would do as an Indigenous person, as the Inuk first in that role. And that was a pressure in itself, because I understood then if I didn't do well, the perception would be there of, here's an Indigenous person, she didn't do well, and so on. Like, there's that pressure that played on my mind. So in the work that I did, I always had that in the back of my mind. How do I make sure that I don't fail and keep that door open for the future generation of Inuit leaders? So added pressure, but the door's open. And for me to go from living from Tom Bay to a community, to go through the system and end up in that role, I always say to the young people today, if I can do it, you can do it too. This is where I came from, and my history is just like yours. I come from a small little community of less than 1,000 people, and I'm at the national level.
Aglukak brought her full lived experience into the House of Commons, and she spoke from that place with strength, honesty, and heart.
I'm an Aboriginal woman who went to residential school. My mother went to residential school. My uncles went to residential school. My brother went to residential school. So if you really want to protect women, you will give women the same rights as non-Aboriginal women in this country.
She acknowledges she didn't get there alone. She told an interviewer in 2012 there were people in her life who not only encouraged her, they were also living examples of what was possible.
My role models were people like Nellie Cornier, who was the first elected female premier of the Northwest Territories, and she was my role model, and she's my great friend today. And people like her I looked up to, and I know that if I can make a difference in someone's life the way other people have in my life, I want to do my part to share my experience, to encourage people to get into this job. I'm not going to be in this job forever, and to get the young minds thinking how they can get involved, I think is important. And equally, I think as elected officials, we have an obligation to do that, to encourage people to follow in your footsteps and do better.
Sure, being a role model, being a mentor comes with responsibility. But don't think it can't be fun and come with some perks. Case in point, Pujit Kusagak, teacher, public servant, director of Nunavut Affairs for Agnico Eagle, and yes, also a part of the Hockey Night in Canada crew. He is a part of NHL games on APTN called Completely in Inuktitut. A first and a proud one.
We're extremely excited about it, and even more excited for our audience and elders, because this will be the first time they ever get to watch an NHL game in Inuktitut.
For Pujit, it's a dream gig. He's a die-hard Montreal Canadiens hockey fan, right up until he has to call their game. Then it's deep breaths, neutral tone, and maybe a little silent cheering on the side.
I'm a huge Habs fan, so it's going to be difficult to do.
Sure, it scratches his hockey itch, but it's also something bigger. It gives Pujit a national stage to celebrate his native language, to reach younger audiences, while staying connected to the elders, to connect the past, present, and future all in one broadcast. Honestly, could there be a better definition of what it means to be a mentor? Because that is what this episode and whole conversation comes down to. Education isn't just what happens in a classroom. It's everything that surrounds it. Housing, food, language, mentorship. It all matters. Even when one of those pieces is missing, the path, it gets harder. And when too many pieces are missing, the path can disappear completely. But here's what else we've seen. Even the most complicated challenges can be met with the simplest answer: working together. People like Darlene Nukinga, Pujit Kusagak, Judith Berry, Leona Aglukuk, and organizations like Agnico Eagle. They're all educators. They're all mentors. They're all role models. Not because they have all the answers, because they never stop showing up. They build trust. They lift others. They believe in what's possible, even when the odds are long.
And that's the only way we're going to be able to maximize the opportunities that we see, not just in the region in the North, but in the people of the North.
I'm Hannah Thibodeau. Thank you for listening to The Arctic Edge, stories from Canada's frontier.